we actually have checkpoints. When a student walks in the door, we actually have metal detectors, and we actually have an X-ray machine that students put their bags through. And after this incident happened, a parent who didn't so much agree with it at first sent me an email saying thank you, because now I see exactly what's happening. And so we oftentimes use that TSA model. When the student comes in, we have somebody at the door to greet them, to do a check-in just to see how they feel. And we have certain point people where I know this person's not feeling so well, so they won't get past point one. They go through the metal detector, their bag go through the machine. And so at the end of the day, just talking to my students writing over today, they all say, well, I feel safe.
So that was Brandon Thompson, Greg. He's from Friendship Tech Prep, which is in Southeast D.C., and he was talking about how their school, they have had metal detectors for a long time. You don't have that all across the country, but yet another possible practical solution that was brought up.
Yeah, and it speaks to the idea of hardening soft targets as an industry. We have metal detectors at Fox, and they're metal detectors in you can't walk. I'm fairly certain you can't walk in with a weapon in Fox News.
Where do we have metal detectors?
I'm assuming we do. Maybe it's just for me. But anyway,
you get special pat-downs.
Let me put this: we have armed security. This is not. This is a hard
Heavily
target.
armed
This is a hard target.
there.
It should be a $1 trillion industry because powerful industries are hardening already. Why are not our public places like schools hardening? You have 3,000 people at a place. They deserve to be protected. And I think if it's metal detectors, I think if it's security, I think if it's concealed carry, all of that stuff. It's all about hardening soft targets. When that happens, however, another soft target will develop because people will move to the easiest target. But then you just adapt and change.
Well, I think the softest target, someone said that you have to worry away from school. I mean, to me, the biggest danger for me with guns is that some gangbanger is going to shoot at somebody else. And
you're absolutely right.
Or hit my family.
More handgun deaths by far in a year than rifle. By far.
By far. Well, I don't know about the numbers on mass shooting, but I'm just saying on a personal basis.
7,000 handgun deaths.
This is what scares me. And so when you hear people talk about this, you think, well, everybody's talking about, what are we going to do? How are you going to harden me walking out the door and going home?
You can't do everything, but I think that one of the things that this gentleman, Jesse, was saying is that at their school, because they have this protection going into the school, and he said also that they check in with people if they think they're having one of those days and they're worried about it. But then at least it gives the comfort to the students so that they can actually do what they're supposed to be doing at school, which is to learn.
Right. So there's no silver bullet here, obviously. There's going to be a whole array of solutions, and like Greg said earlier, they're not going to completely ever prevent another shooting at a school. But in inner cities, you have these big school buildings. Architecturally, there's usually 1 or 2 doors to go in and out. So those checkpoints make sense to put a metal detector in. Maybe a rural school or something in the middle of Florida, you have a sprawling campus with lots of different entrances and different buildings. That's not a solution there. Maybe a solution there is to have an armed security guard or an armed head coach, or to intervene. And I think the intervention thing here is the key, is this kid should have been flagged. In freshman year, he should have been flagged. I mean, if you're suspended that many times and you've had a mobile crisis unit called to the school to say this guy might hurt himself or somebody else, I don't know if he was suspended or expelled or transferred to another at-risk school. There's so many red flags here. You have to put it into a centralized database, and you have to make sure it gets into the FBI background check system, because this guy's threat matrix was through the roof. But honestly, the FBI dropped the ball twice on it. That's a critical point.
What do you say number one, and this is something where Trump and I agree. Number one is that guy should not have been able to get a gun.
I agree. Too young. No one with that profile should ever been able to get an AR-15.
At age, and I'm all for that.
I think we'll get a gun.
What?
What about, forget an AR-15.
A handgun, well, you have to be 21 to get a handgun, but absolutely no AR. But you know what? The AR, if you bump it up to age 21, the AR is a very popular weapon. It's used in rural communities for target, for big game, for small game, for sport. Everything. And people like it because it's stylish, you can customize it, you can personalize it, and it's very accurate. If you ban an 18-year-old from getting an AR-15, what's going to stop him from going in with a shotgun or a long rifle. I mean, it's not a perfect solution, but I'm definitely open to the idea of raising the limit to 21.
I think the president has an idea here that I think is going to come to fruition, which is that kid shouldn't have had a gun. So what steps could we have taken to prevent that young man from legally obtaining a gun? Illegal guns, that's another issue, but let's just start with that.
That's number one.
We talked about this. The defensive position, which is how do you rig the system to keep the guns away, is wrong. The offensive strategy is to tag the perp so he doesn't get the gun. And that's where you look, where you have school officials, you have police, you have students. There's a database. There's a person there that's a problem. They go into the database. They don't get a gun. That's a defensive strategy that leaves law-abiding gun owners alone and goes after the felons and the sick.
Yeah, I'm all for that. But you know, a lot of people object. They say, why is my name being put in there? And so if
there are going to be objections.
Yeah, if I go to a shrink or whatever.
Right. Kimberly, I wanted to ask you just from a law enforcement standpoint. For the shooter, flagged several times. Is there a point where you think that is it a federal law or is it state and local laws that would allow law enforcement to intervene earlier?
Well, I think you have to probably have both, as you see, because there has to be some control and autonomy at a local, a state level, local ordinances to make sure that they have the tools that they're equipped with. Look, I think there should be metal detectors at school. Why not? Look at the schools that have the metal detectors. I mean, this isn't that difficult to figure out. And it's not just about making sure that guns don't get in the wrong hands. It's about protecting the environment. It's about saying that how many times do you have to learn the same lesson over and over and over again? Schools are a target. Why? Because we have continued to allow them to be. We have not allowed the schools to equip themselves and protect the students. Why not? I can go and fly on a plane tonight and go through TSA and go through all kinds of stuff. But a child goes to school and there are no protections in so many places. And I think it's unacceptable because, believe me, if somebody is hell-bent on going in and killing and taking lives, they will find a way and a means to do it. And you can focus and get hypersensitive about the AR-15, or you can talk about how we can prevent this from happening in general. And it is really multifaceted in terms of the approach and the platform that is needed. So if you are just focusing on, oh, we need to ban guns, we need to do this, then you are really missing the large part of the problem here.
Greg, what about the possibility for technology to improve the ability to, we think of metal detectors as being quite clunky and difficult to get through, a lot of false positives, walking back and through it slows you down. That's why people say they don't want metal detectors at subway stops, because they don't want to be slowed down all the time. But is technology going to help us advance?
I don't know. I think technology, as it helps us advance, also hurts us. When drones are married to other kinds of agents, that is going to be an issue in the future, not simply just for the mass shooter aspect, but for terrorism in general. So I think that it's a double-edged sword, and that is no pun intended. You
know what I worry about those? So listen to Kimberly, movies. You know, I go to the movies. You go to the basketball game. You go to the baseball. Everywhere now there's going to have to be magnetometers. And I just think we're making the whole society into an armory to get away from the fact that no one wants to say, hey, we got a problem with guns.
Well, it's part of it,
There's not a lot of shootings at NBA games. There's a lot of shootings at schools. So you prioritize where the metal detectors are.
I think Columbine happened at a school, but I also think we had Aurora with the shooting at a movie theater.
That's
right,
true.
because
and
those are soft targets,
I think we just had shooting at a concert in Las Vegas.
Right, but I think right now we're focused on schools.
Well, I'm just saying.
And
that's one of the places
at
where
the
we need a lot of
Bataclan
metal
in
detectors.
Paris.
Right,
So these are
there's a bigger
universal
problem
issues.
that people don't want to deal with.
What do you? I don't.
Okay, but I go down to
people
pay
don't want to deal with it. We just watch people dealing
You
with
go
it.
down to
people
pay a
are
parking
dealing
ticket
with-
at court. You make there's
we'll have
security
many days ahead of us to talk about. There's an extraordinary day where we watch the president do this amazing town hall on school shootings. That's it for us. Brett is up with much more reaction on the president's listening session on gun safety. Hi, Brett.